If you're new to dating post-divorce and you are feeling disoriented, overwhelmed, it is possible that you are dating from a place of survival, not a place of self-worth. And if that's the case, I've got the episode for you. So tune in today and learn how to go from surviving to feeling worthy. See you soon. Hi, today we're going to talk about going from a survival mindset in your dating journey to a better place of self-worth, to really feeling like you are deserving of a healthy dating experience that leads to a healthy, successful relationship. So let's dig in. It's really about being aware of where you're at, and then we'll talk about how to shift gears to go from where you're at to where you want to be. So going from surviving to deserving, we're really talking about dating with a new sense of self-worth. I can share with you that when I first got divorced over a decade ago, I felt confident as a human being. But as you know, divorce is incredibly disorienting. And so even the most confident of women or of people can feel like they have lost who they are, or they're overwhelmed, confused. You're certainly grieving. There's so many different emotions, and all of which are normal. And those emotions, those experiences, that disorientation can really lead to a place of being unsure about who you are. You might even question who you are. Let's say you go out on a date with somebody and you think, oh, they didn't call me back. They didn't text me. There must be something wrong with me. Versus maybe they're just not interested. So again, talking today about going from a place of survival mode in your dating journey to deserving mode. And I want to put a caveat out too, that when I say deserving, I'm not sitting back saying that, you should think you're better than anybody else and you deserve to be treated like a queen or a princess. And maybe you do, that's okay. What I'm saying is I'm really talking about self-worth, and I want you to remember who you are. I tell a lot of my clients and, women friends who might have moments of self-doubt, and we all do, it's life, to sit back and remember who you are. Take a look at what you've accomplished. Just the getting a divorce in and of itself is an accomplishment, and you may not see it as such, but think about it. You had to do a lot to get to where you are. So when you are in that survival mode, it's important to be there. Survival gets us through the storm. Deserving and being clear about your self-worth determines where you're going to land. I'll say it again. Survival gets you through the storm. Deserving determines where you land. It's spot on. So it's just another level of confidence and security and clarity about what it is you're looking for. Again, when I first started dating post-divorce, I didn't know what I was looking for. Companionship, a husband to kind of replace my last husband. What was I looking for? I didn't know. But I will say that every date I've had over all these years has helped me to get more and more clear about who I am, what I want, and maybe even more importantly, what I don't want. So here's how you know when you're in survival mode when you're dating. You might ignore red flags. Red flags being, oh, well, he said he hasn't worked in X amount of years and he needs to be back at home. This is based on a true story. He needs to be back at home at a certain time. Well, because I later found out he needed to be back at home at a certain time because he was on house arrest and had committed a crime. So just gotten out of prison. Now, that red flag, I did not ignore, which I'm happy to say. I ran for the hills. But sometimes when we are in survival mode, we might see things and we minimize them or dismiss them and think, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? So he has to be back in the house at 4 o'clock, or whatever it is. So that's a way to know that you're in survival mode if you're ignoring the red flags. And by the way, even yellow flags. Yellow might be, hey, I need some more information about this before I proceed. Pay attention to those flags. Another way to know that you are in survival mode is if you're choosing potential, and us women can be very good at this, versus the patterns that he shows you. And I'll talk in heterosexual terms, but apply whatever works for you. Somebody shows us who they are over and over again. He says he's going to call. He says he's going to text. He doesn't call. He doesn't text. He says, let's make a plan to go out. He cancels. He cancels. He cancels. And you ignore these patterns and you think, but he seems like such a nice guy. He's got such good potential. Girls, ladies, we don't marry potential. You see what's in front of you and you deal with that. And you ask yourself, can I live with the strengths and the weaknesses that this person has? And if the answer is absolutely not, then you need to walk away. So being in survival mode, I also don't want you to judge yourself or beat yourself up for this. Being in survival mode is actually a nervous state system. It's like a nervous system state. It's a place that our nervous system goes to protect ourselves. So it's a defense mechanism, really. And it's important that you recognize that and maybe even have some compassion for yourself. My nervous system is dysregulated right now, and I need to pay attention to it. This is not a character or personality flaw. If you're in survival mode, it's normal. So here's another way to distinguish between surviving and deserving. Survival mode, if you're out on a date with somebody and you're having a nice time and laughs and drinks and a great meal and compliments and there's flirting, it's great. You're asking, but again, there are those red flags that you haven't really tuned into too much yet. You're asking yourself, can I make this work? Can I make this work? Will this work? Is this going to work out for me and him and us? Dating from a place of deserving, however, is asking yourself, does this honor me? Does this connection with this person, or lack thereof, connection with this person, honor who I am and who I'm working toward becoming? So they're very different questions, and they're both really important to ask yourself. Notice if you're asking yourself, am I making this work? Can I make this work? Can I fit the square peg into a round hole? And trust me, I've tried. It doesn't fit, okay? Squares don't fit in circles. They just don't. If you're trying really, really hard to make something work, that's in and of itself good information for you to have about where this is at and where it's going. And again, the most important question here is, does this honor me? And if it does, have at it, girl. Enjoy. Green light, go. So those are important questions. When we are dating from a place of deserving, of more self-worth, and I want to make the distinction, deserving is not entitlement. I was alluding to that earlier, that we're not sitting back feeling like somebody has to kiss our feet, but again, there's a difference between entitlement and being really clear about what you're willing and not willing to tolerate. So deserving is not where you demand perfection. You're not going to find it. It doesn't exist. But what deserving is, it is self-respect in action. So you are acting from a place, choosing to go out with this person or not go out with this person, or are you going back to their place yet? Or are you having sex with this person yet? All these decisions that we have to consider when we're dating have to come from a place of self-respect. And when they don't, it just won't work. The relationship won't work. Something will show up at some point where you question yourself and you say, this doesn't feel right. And okay, good learning lesson, but pay attention. So dating from deserving also is when you are more in a place of observing. You're not auditioning for a role on Broadway, like, does he like me? And did I sing well enough? Did I dance well enough? Did I act well enough? Did I perform well enough? It's not an audition, ladies. What it is a getting to know somebody. It's a really sitting in your truth and watching them and observing, not with judgment, but instead with curiosity and openness, and let somebody teach you who they are. And then you get to decide if you feel like you and he will gel. And or he may decide that you and he are not a fit, and that's okay too. That's okay too. So deserving isn't about believing that you're better than somebody. Instead, it's about believing that you don't have to abandon yourself. I remember early on in one of my relationships, I have a very, very dear friend, and she and her husband were the kind of people that I would introduce my dates to. So if they passed the test of meeting these dear friends, then I would continue to see them. And that obviously wasn't the only barometer, but it was an important barometer for me. And one of the things my dear friend said to me after meeting this man I was with on this date, she said, "What happened to you last night?" She said, he was nice, but you didn't really speak. It was like I shrunk parts of myself in order to be with this person. And that is a telltale sign that this is not a healthy relationship. If you have to shrink who you are, abandon who you are in any way, shape, or form, this is not the relationship for you. Because then you're betraying yourself too. And that's certainly not what we want to do. And if you start a relationship in doing so, why shouldn't he betray you if you're going to betray yourself? Why should he respect you if you're not respecting yourself? So how do you then go from surviving to deserving? How do we make this shift? Well, the way that you do this internal shift will really change everything inside of you. You go from, can I make this work, to how do I feel when I am being authentically me here with this person? How do I feel when I'm being authentically myself? Do I feel like that's acceptable? Like it to me? Do I feel seen? Do I feel heard? Do I feel validated? Versus, am I shrinking myself? Or can I put the square peg in the round hole? So when you have internal worth, when you have true self-esteem, you're going to be looking more for consistency over time in a dating experience, not somebody who's going to charm you and sweep you off your feet, although that may be lovely, but the proof is in the pudding, right? And it's not just in like the little powder part before you create the pudding. Like, let's wait and see how this manifests over time. And if you can be who you really are, that's the sign of a healthy relationship. So consistency matters more than charm. Peace, ladies, peace, which is something that I hear so many of my clients talk about. I don't necessarily want to be happy. I just want to be peaceful. Well, peace is not negotiable. It's not a luxury. Peace is an absolute requirement. And without it, there's no relationship. It's not like, oh, it's an extra. He's nice, he makes a lot of money, or he's smart, or he wines and dines me, and once in a while we have peace. But the other times we're fighting or raging, or, he's demeaning. No. Peace cannot be temporary. And this is not to say that you're going to be in a Zen state, 24/7. But yes, you should be in a respected state 24/7, for sure. So making this shift is really important. And the shift comes from really doing the work, whether it's affirmations, it's meditation, journaling. I'll offer you a journal prompt at the end of today's episode as well, and or therapy. So reach out if you need guidance or direction. Here are some practical dating behaviors that show your self-worth. Practical dating behaviors that will show your self-worth. You will ask clear and direct questions without apologizing. Like maybe I shouldn't ask him why he got divorced. Maybe I'll wait until we've been dating for a few months. No, you can ask right out of the gate. Maybe I shouldn't ask him about his politics right away. No, you can ask him right out of the gate. If you know that there are certain things that are deal breakers for you, why wait? Why waste his time? Why waste your time? And if somebody is offended or put off, that speaks volumes about them. I actually asked a man on a date recently, so tell me why your marriage ended. And his response was, oh, we're going there already. I was like, yeah. I didn't see him again. So people tell us who they are. Believe them, right? Also, another practical dating behavior that will show your self-worth or your level of self-worth is that you don't chase clarity. You expect clarity. Somebody, again, is a man of their word. They say they're going to do something, they do it. They have integrity. I think that's really what I'm talking about here. Integrity. And that's not something that either also is a bonus. It's mandatory. So the right relationship, like I said before, ladies, will not ask you to shrink who you are as a person. It will honor who you are as a person. So let's just do a little reality check here. You might be listening and thinking, this all sounds well and good, but Stacy, what if I end up alone? What if I end up all by myself? Okay, well, my response is you're better off being alone than being in the wrong relationship. And being alone is not the same as nobody wants me. We have to be really mindful of the stories that we tell ourselves. Nobody wants me. He never called me back. Therefore, I'm not worthy. Well, that's one story, but sorry, that's horseshit. It's really not true. Not every two people that meet on a date, especially with the dating apps and all of these filters, and there's so much social media and all everything that we're bombarded with today. Just because you're home alone on a Saturday night does not mean that you are not worthy or deserving or lovable. So I would say, make yourself a great meal, call a girlfriend, watch some Netflix, go for a walk, join a gym. I don't care what you do, but whatever it is, honor who you are. And maybe if you believe in God or the universe or whatever faith or spirituality you have, maybe you're supposed to be alone for this amount of time. Maybe this is happening for a reason, for you to get more comfortable with who you are and really work on strengthening your self-worth. Another reality check question might be, well, what if I'm too picky? You know how many people have said to me over the years, Stacy, you're just too picky. No, I beg to differ. I'm not too picky. I have standards, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm not looking for perfect, although I was guilty of that early on. Yeah, well, this man has two eyes. How can I go out with him? He has two eyes, two ears, and one nose, like I was looking for some, I don't know, this was all just fear. Really, that's really what it was. It was fear, and it was masked as he's not good enough because. But this is not about having standards that are too high. It is about knowing what your standards are and not settling for less. Having standards means you know yourself well enough to, again, not betray those. So we've talked about the difference between being in survival mode, being in deserving mode, where you really know who you are and you're really confident in yourself, and how to get from point A to point B. In closing, I want to say, ladies, you don't date differently because you've got the next new guy in front of you. It's like, oh, well, the last one just wasn't the right fit, so next. We have a joke in my family, like, well, that one didn't work out. Next, get in line, and it's funny, but it's really not funny. It's really not funny, actually, because the truth is dating has become very much like a revolving door, and somebody's coming in, somebody's going out. And I've had to, and I've come to the point where I would much rather be alone than be on this, hamster wheel of dating. Having said that, you don't date differently because someone better shows up. You date differently because you have shown up differently. You have shown up with more clarity. You have shown up with more self-esteem, more self-worth. So do the work and watch what happens, ladies. It will change things. So I leave you with the journal prompt, as I always do. And I think the journaling is such a healing, cathartic process. It really is. I would highly recommend it if you're not journaling. Today's journal prompt is, where in my life am I still operating from survival instead of from self-worth? I'll say it again. Where in my life, in my dating life, am I still operating from survival instead of from self-worth? Thanks for joining me, ladies. Happy dating. See you soon. Take care.
Thanks for hanging out with me on Divorced Women Dating. Dating after divorce is definitely an adventure. And honestly, it is way more fun when we do it together. Hit subscribe so you don't miss a single moment of the helpful, hopeful, or just really relatable episodes. See you soon.